Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for recognizing me to join in this debate on Budget Statement 2024. And Madam Speaker, I almost thought I may not have had the opportunity to contribute. I'm the last member of the opposition on this side, the 19th member of the opposition to have joined the debate. And my colleagues who have gone before me, I want to congratulate them on some very comprehensive, well-researched and powerful presentations in this budget. And especially I want to congratulate the member for Barataria for one of the best budget responses, debunking the claims of the Minister of Finance with respect to this budget statement. And Madam Speaker, the population have seen that we are the alternative cabinet of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And Dr. Munilal said that the PNM is in the departure lounge. Well, Madam Speaker, it is about time that we come in the arrival lounge. And the last time we met here, Madam Speaker, it was just about 24 hours ago, under 24 hours ago. There have been some very critical issues that were facing our country. Just last night, a semi-nude body of a female was found thrown on the highway in the vicinity of Twin City. Last night, in the busy Arapita Avenue, a vehicle was gunned down with 3 occupants in it, the driver having been shot, and he's dead, a 28-year-old young man. Tragedy hit my constituency this morning, Madam Speaker. The area of Barataria, it was an attempted assassination on the Deputy Commissioner of Prisons. Madam Speaker, this is where this PNM government has taken Trinidad and Tobago. They keep saying that we like to bad talk Trinidad and Tobago, Madam Speaker. That is absolutely untrue. We just speak the truth about the PNM. We speak the truth about the PNM, Madam Speaker. Because I want to condemn that action of the attempted assassination on the Deputy Commissioner of Prison in my constituency, Madam Speaker. I want to condemn that. And what is even more irking is that I have in my possession a letter dated the 9th of October 2023, a letter that is circulated on social media, Madam Speaker, 2 days ago before this attack, from the Prison Officers Association of Trinidad and Tobago to the Minister of National Security. What? And the title of this letter, Madam Speaker, is Honorable Minister, no authorized phones for inmates in all prisons is a threat to the lives of prison officers. Madam Speaker, the Minister of National Security, the member for Laventille West, was warned by the Prison Officers Association that there can be a threat on the lives of prison officers, and he did absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Imagine they have had this information in their possession and they did not do anything whatsoever. Madam Speaker, in any other democratic country with a properly working cabinet, there would have been an urgent and immediate summoning of the National Security Council to deal with this matter. Because now we have to beg the question, who is next? If the criminals are so brazen at 6:37 a.m. in the morning to show up by a man's house, none other than the Deputy Commissioner of Prison, and spray down his vehicle with bullets, who are we, Madam Speaker? Who are we? The question is, who is next in this country? This Minister of National Security has done nothing to protect the citizens of this country. The Minister of Finance, in reading his budget statement, wait until about the 3rd or 4th hour before he talked to us about crime and security in this country. What a shame. What a shame. Had we been living in a country where government cares for us, it would have had CCTV cameras to detect those persons. It would have had rapid response to intercept those individuals, Madam Speaker. What we have, a breakdown of the CCTV infrastructure in this country. And they will come, last year I remember in the budget, we are going to allocate millions of dollars to install 2,500 new cameras. Madam Speaker, they probably didn't even install a single new camera. They have not told us where that money went. And the existing infrastructure of CCTV cameras is down by about 50%.
Correct.
And then the Minister of Digital Transformation comes here to tell us about all the website and all the infrastructure. Just give us CCTV cameras. Just give us that. It's a nice talk to come here and talk about ICT infrastructure, and it's so frustrating to go from one ministry to the next. And Madam Speaker, we just want to be safe. Just protect the citizens of this country. Just protect us. That is all we are asking for at this stage, Madam Speaker. That is all. And I want to tell the Minister of National Security through you, Madam Speaker, an apology does not save lives. Apologies don't save lives. The criminals are at war with us, but the Minister of National Security is asleep.
So,
he is asleep.
Just by way of warning, member for Barataria San Juan, as you quite rightly said, you're the 19th member to speak and the 40th member to join the debate. Crime has been flogged, so you really bordering on tedious repetition. So that if you're going to, member, you have a problem? Well, I'm on my legs, okay? I'm on my legs in any event, okay? So, member for Barataria San Juan, as I was saying, crime has been flogged, and therefore, while I'll allow you some leeway on new issues, please let's don't rehash for at least the 19th time things that have been said on crime. Okay?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'll wind up this point by saying that the hopeless, hapless, misinformed, waste of time Minister of National Security has to go. He has to go. He has to go. Madam Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the theme of this budget debate is building capacity for diversification and growth. Now, there is something called the Diversification Index, and it is measured on a scale from 0 to 1. And the closer you are to 1, that's the less diversified you are. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in 2022, Trinidad and Tobago ranked 0.75 on that scale. So I don't understand how the Minister of Finance could have come up with a theme like this, building capacity for diversification and growth, when they have crashed the economy and they have no plans for diversification. You have decimated the energy industry. So what do you expect the non-energy industry to happen? There must be growth in that sector. Madam Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, they have destroyed this economy. This is this government's, 8th or 9th budget, the 8th year of governance. They have spent over $420 billion. Well, what have we seen for $420 billion? Nothing, absolutely nothing. In 5 years, police officers never complained for pen and paper in the police station. Hospitals never complained for beds and medicine, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Children never complained for surgeries because we were doing it when we were in government. And the problem here, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is not resources. They have money. The problem is management. The problem is management. They have mismanaged almost every single sector of governance. Not one sector they can point at that is properly functioning. And then they will come budget after budget and complain about the same exact issues as though they are not in government. Sometimes when they stand up to speak, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am in awe because I think this is their first appointment. I thought they were appointed right before they came to the budget speech because they identify all of the issues but not a single solution. Madam, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the expiry date of this government is nearing very soon, and there's a foul stench coming from that side, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, Joseph Stalin was a dictator in the Soviet Union. And Mr. Stalin controlled the narrative, Mr. Deputy Speaker. He would ensure that the narrative that he goes out there is propagated. They will invent statistics, Mr. Deputy Speaker. They attempt to control what we call the truth at that time. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm not casting any aspersions, but I see a similar conduct here. This government will tell us we have first-class health care. They will tell us that the economy is growing. They will tell us the crime situation is not that bad. We just complain too much. And they will tell us that the energy sector is booming. That is their reality. That is their truth. Mr. Deputy Speaker, what is the reality of everyone else? High food prices, a crime situation out of control with home invasions, highest murder toll, brutal killing of young people, roads filled with potholes, and skilled graduates without jobs. You see, they want to propagate their truth, Mr. Deputy Speaker, but we will propagate the reality on the side. And they will try to control the truth because that will encourage debate. That will encourage us to question their story, Mr. Deputy Speaker. But we will expose this government for what they really are. We will expose them. Because not too long ago, the member for St. Anne's East contributed. I think she was the shadow of the Minister of Education. And the minister said that we should be what? Grateful for the bursaries. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the bursaries that these students got was based on their own merit, their performance, their circumstances. And they want the government, they are forcing these children to tell the government, a little, we thanks, Some of these students are made to understand who are studying in foreign universities abroad have been locked out from being able to register for courses because the government has not even released the funding for the bursaries. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the minister said what? Education did not collapse. Well, the schools are in fact collapsing. Right in Sawa, concrete was falling from our school. St. George's College is going to celebrate 70 years in 2023. Mr. Deputy Speaker, that school has been moved out since last year, and we don't know when they will go back in their building. One whole year, St. George's College has moved out, and today I'm advocating on behalf of the students and the parents of that school in my constituency. Minister, please get that school up and running. Get that school up and running. They have been housed in the constituency of, I believe, my friend from the member for St. Augustine at the Valsayn Teaching College. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to make a comment with respect to what the Minister of Digital Transformation said. And he said that they're integrating services. So you don't have to jump from one ministry to the next ministry to provide the same information, that in healthcare they're trying to integrate the services. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we don't have chairs, bed, medicine in the hospital, but them talking about putting computer in the hospital, This is the reality that these people have, They feel as though that everything is working properly, and that everybody else just bad talking the government. Mr. Deputy Speaker, that is the propaganda we speak of. That is the propaganda. And we will engage in this budget exercise days after days after days. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, we on this side could say what we want, it will change nothing because the government will have the way. They do not listen. They do not listen. It is time, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we think whether or not we have to reform this entire system on this budgeting exercise. Because we understand on this side the value of consulting with people before we come into this parliament with respect to budgetary allocations. Because you understand what the ordinary man on the ground, the issues that he faces, and that is called participatory budgeting. And we have to determine whether or not all of this time we are going to spend here, 5 days in standing finance committee, 5 days worth of debate. We normally pass one bill per sitting in this parliament. we are engaging in 10 days here, and whether or not we can put this towards more productive time, because we understand parliamentary time is expensive and it's scarce, Mr. Deputy Speaker. So we have to look at whether or not this entire system is in need of reform, whether it is in need of reform, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to move on to this point about the announcement of the 1,000 SRPs that the government wants to introduce in fiscal 2024, the 1,000 recruits. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Remember, again, I'll give you a certain leeway, right? Let me see what avenue you're going down, but remember the ruling with regards to tedious repetition and with regards to crime and policing and so on.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I give you the assurance I would not be breaching the standing orders. I'm going to raise a very new issue with respect to this matter. Mr. Deputy Speaker, when the government announced the 1,000 additional recruit for 2024 for the TTPS, it sounds as though as soon as this budget is passed, we will have 1,000 new police officers on the streets. That's what they make it out to be. Mr. Deputy Speaker, it takes about 6 to 9 months for that entire passing out to happen. And before that, it will take even more time for the recruitment process, because you have to screen the candidates, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And then you have to advertise in the newspapers, you have to take the exams, you have to go through all of the training at the police academy. So this is not going to happen overnight. You have to get certificate of character, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and that is not even working in this country. That is not even working. Mr. Deputy Speaker, there are SRP officers in this country who have had the experience, well-trained officers. And I must say that based on the setup of the system, there are two streams of officers. There are the SRP officers and there are the regulars. And the regulars have a more favorable terms and conditions in terms of their remuneration package as compared to SRPs. Yet they do almost the identical job, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And there's a disparity with respect to their salary. And I have a copy of a memo dated the 3rd of August 2022 with respect to how many SRPs are in this system. There are over 3,435 SRPs in the system, and they are placed all in almost every single department of the TTPS, Mr. Deputy Speaker. In fact, right here in this Parliament, most of the officers here who are very hard-working officers who keep us safe are SRP officers. And SRPs have been asking year after year, why don't you make us regulars, Mr. Deputy Speaker? So instead of having to go over this entire recruitment exercise, you can just absorb the SRPs into the system, 1,000 of the 3,000, because you have the officers who are well-trained, who have been given the experience, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and who knows the system, and give them the opportunity to be absorbed within that 1,000 recruitment exercise. And this is nothing new, Mr. Deputy Speaker. This was already done in 2008. I have a legal notice number 175 of 2008, which speaks of the Police Service Recruitment of Special Reserve Police Regulations 2008, and the name of that project was called SRP 1000 Project. It is the same thing I am proposing here, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Absorb these SRPs into the system, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The crime situation is urgent, and we need all hands on deck, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The criminals are at war with us. And it's not an automatic recruitment exercise. There are various thresholds where you have to meet in order to be recruited within the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that is the point I wish to raise with respect to that recruitment exercise. I want to also go into what the government has done with some millions of dollars in this country when they had a crime symposium in the Hyatt. What was doing? Guzzling whiskey or champagne and eating shrimps.
Again, honourable member, I'll prefer you don't go down that road. Move on to a different point, please.
That cost us $3.4 million, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
A different point.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, if I'm not mistaken, I don't believe anybody raised the crime symposium as a public health emergency, and that is the point I want to make.
Honourable member, I have ruled.
Well, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'll move on. And I'll move on to say that there are issues with respect to human trafficking in this country. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think any of my colleagues raised that issue.
No, nobody.
And Mr. Deputy Speaker, you would have seen that under the law, the Minister of National Security has an obligation in order to lay annual reports with respect to the counter-trafficking unit according to Section 45 of the Trafficking in Persons Act. Mr. Deputy Speaker, that minister must lay that report within 3 months at the end of every year. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the minister has failed to lay that report since 2017 in this House. He has been in breach of the law, and we must call him to account for that. We have taken the Minister of Finance to court with respect to a similar matter like this, and we have no fear that we will do it to the member of national security, because he has to account to the people of where the money has gone and what this government is doing with respect to human trafficking. Because we have been on the Tier 2 watch list by the US for several years, and my friend from Naparima continuously raised many of these issues. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to move on to another area which is of grave concern. Very, very grave concern, Mr. Deputy Speaker. When I looked at some documents that were presented in this Parliament, in particular, the annual report of the Integrity Commission.
Oh.
The
annual report, the 35th annual report to the Parliament for the year 2022 of the Integrity Commission. That Integrity Commission has a specified line item in this budget. And in this Integrity Commission report, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is a shame on this government of what I will reveal as I go along. The Prime Minister has, in an incarnation before, said that the Integrity Commission has no integrity. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I will demonstrate that this government is intent on collapsing the Integrity Commission. They are going to starve the Integrity Commission to death. They have no moral authority to speak of integrity. This Integrity Commission was established by a UNC government in the year 2000 under the Integrity in Public Life Act. And for those who are listening, this Integrity Commission would have been in charge of reviewing the declarations that members in public life would file in terms of their assets and their liabilities. Now, I looked at this report, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the 35th annual report of the Integrity Commission, and it's signed off by Professor Rajendra Ramlugan as chairman, Frederick Jilks, deputy chairman, Eleanor Bridgman-Volney, member, Sandra Honore, member, and Lyndon James, member. And this is what the report says under the item budgetary constraints, and I'm going to quote. The members of the Integrity Commission is informing this country of the following. The Commission faces a financial stranglehold owing to the deficient and significantly depleted budget, which suffocates the efforts of the Commission to perform its statutory duties. The drastic depletion of the budget can be observed by comparing 26 million allocated to the Commission in 2015, that's when we were in government, correct, with the figure of 8.6 million allocated in 2023. From 26 million, they have reduced the budget of the Integrity Commission to $8.6 million. Through the Commission, it received a small bump of 8 million in 2022 to 8.6 in 2023. The latter and most recent figure is woefully short of what is required to ensure the implementation of the Commission's mandate. At present, there are several open positions in the Commission which cannot be filled due to lack of funding. This has severely affected the progress of what? The investigations unit in particular. Why is the government starving the Integrity Commission of resources that the Integrity Commission now has to complain that it may not be able to function? The Commission has been provided with a restricted budget that cannot carry the Commission to meet its staffing expenses for the year 2023 and beyond. The Commission predicts that the failure of granting additional funding will lead to the end of contract employment for several staff members, as the Commission will not be able to be in a position to remunerate persons. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Commission, the Integrity Commission, is telling us that the government is not giving them money to even pay their own staff. What a shame. Why is this government starving the Integrity Commission to death? What is their problem with the Integrity Commission?
They have no integrity.
What is their problem with the Integrity Commission? Mr. Deputy Speaker, they are complaining that under the Act, they go to court and get ex parte orders in order to serve members in public life. They do not have money to pay the people to serve the orders. They are called process servers, Mr. Deputy Speaker. They do not want this Integrity Commission to function. They say that another example that signals the arrested development of the Commission must contend with legal fees necessary to ensure that decisions that they have are properly supported by legal guidance. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this move by the government to strangle the Integrity Commission is something that must be condemned. A government rooted in strong democratic values and principles of accountability and transparency should throw money at the Integrity Commission to ensure that persons in public life are compliant with their obligations under the law. Yet this government, it seems as though, is intent on shutting down the Integrity Commission by starving it to death, Mr. Deputy Speaker. They are starving it to death. And while I left the last point on the Integrity Commission on legal fees, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I have some very interesting matters I want to raise with respect to legal fees in this country. Mr. Deputy Speaker, when we went in the mid-year review, I asked the Attorney General, who I almost had to hold before the Privileges Committee for misleading this Parliament, and he had to apologize to this Parliament, about legal fees, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Would you believe that in 2023, according to the revised estimates, this government in 1 year under the Office of the Attorney General has spent a whopping $195 million in legal fees. $195 million, the highest ever spent on legal fees in a single calendar year in this country, Mr. Deputy, in a fiscal year in this country, Mr. Deputy Speaker. $195 million in legal fees. And then when I asked the Attorney General, will give us a breakdown of these individuals or these lawyers who collected these legal fees, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I can pass this document to you. It is 2 pages long with names on it, not a single allocation of who got the money, how much they got, what they got the money for.
That's contempt.
So, Mr. Deputy Speaker,
Contempt.
we know this is unacceptable. So we had to know, according to other documents I received, a Freedom of Information application had to be filed on the Office of the Attorney General and other ministries and state enterprises to then disclose how much legal fees or where these fees were allocated. Now, Ravi Balgobin Maraj, through the Freedom Law Chambers, Mr. Anand Ramluga and Senior Counsel, would have filed the necessary Freedom of Information application to get this information that should have been readily available by the Attorney General in public. We now had to invoke the provisions of the law to get this information. And based on the compilation that I have received, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to now disclose or report to this Parliament where the money gone. Because if the government don't want to report where the money gone, where this $190 million in 1 year has gone, I had to now account to this Parliament because we had asked for the period 2015 to the period 2023, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And for that period, these are the top fee earners for this period. Fayad Hussein, $28.5 million. Fitzwilliam Stone, $23.3 million. Dr. Claude Denbo, Senior Counsel, $22.7 million. Roger Kewal Singh, $18.2 million. Gilbert Peterson, SC, $18 million. Reginald Armour, Senior Counsel, $17.5 million.
The Attorney General.
One Kerwin Garcia, $14.2 million.
Penny Beckles.
Natram Kaulesa, $12.5 million.
Members, the member is doing well. He needs no assistant. Go ahead.
Jason Mutu, $10 million. Douglas Mendez, $10 million. Michael Kwamena, $8.5 million. Farai Hove Masaisai, $6.5 million. Justin Phelps, $5 million. Elton Prescott, $4.5 million. Rafael Ajoda, who I believe is in a chamber, well known to the Attorney General in his former employment, $4.4 million. Terence Barrett, $2.7 million. Keith Scotland, $1.8 million. Hines and Company, $1.55 million, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the grand total of legal fees for the period September 2015 to May 2023 is $1.1 billion. $1.1 billion. And today the Integrity Commission is complaining for $1 to pay staff at that commission. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I call shame on this government. Shame. Because most of the names I called here were in defense of the Attorney General when the motion of no confidence was brought against him. Mr. Deputy Speaker, under the Office of the Attorney General alone, for the period 2016 to 2023, the Attorney General Office alone would have expended $649 million in legal fees. $649 million in legal fees. And then they will tell you that, listen, we have no money to buy dialysis machine. We have no money to give, what, we want to give the students a $1,000 school grant and they must do a means test. And then they tell us about we must pay property tax and we must give back the government, we must loosen our belt. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is a crying shame in this country for children who die because they don't have life-saving surgeries. Mr. Deputy Speaker, when police officers have to write the members of parliament to ask for fundraisers, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for laptops, for paper, for toilet paper, I want to remind them that this government spent $1.1 billion in legal fees for the last 5 to 6 years, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It is a crying shame, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to move on to another very important matter. And this matter has to do with a legal notice that was filed or promulgated through the hand of the Minister of Finance. And this is legal notice number 268 of 2023. And it is called the Water and Sewerage Authority Tax Exemption Order of 2023. And what it says, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is that on the 16th of April 2021, WASA entered into a loan agreement or arrangement with one NCB Merchant Bank Trinidad and Tobago Limited, formerly known as NCB Global Finance Limited. And this is the amount of the loan, $35 million US. And WASA has entered in its loan in 2021, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And what it says is that WASA is now liable to pay something called a withholding tax on the interest payments on this loan agreement. And then the minister comes and says that WASA is exempt from the payment of all taxes with respect to the loan. So WASA is being given a tax exemption on a loan of $35 million US. And what is suspicious is the bank. It's NCB Global Finance, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I have a couple questions to ask the Minister of Finance. Firstly, Minister of Finance, through you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, do you have the authority under the WASA Act to even do this tax exemption? Because the minister in charge of WASA is the Minister of Public Utilities. So I want to know, firstly, whether you had the authority to even promulgate this legal notice. The second is, why did you exempt this particular loan arrangement between WASA and NCB? Have you exempted any other similar loan arrangements? What were the considerations before you exercise your discretion with respect to creating this exemption order, Mr. Deputy Speaker? Also, I want to ask the Minister, how much money is this withholding tax going to benefit the taxpayers? Because I would not want a situation where this company is being given unfavorable treatment with any other banks. And the simple answer is we have to now question whether or not this gives a competitive advantage to this company as compared to other companies. Because local institutions and local banks would not have to pay withholding tax. That is something for companies that are non-resident in Trinidad. So a local bank will bid, and they will bid based on interest payments and the principal. Whereas if NCB bids, it will be principal, interest, plus the withholding tax. Now, if the government is exempting the withholding tax, will it now give NCB a competitive advantage over any other financial institutions? And I want to tie in this point, and I don't want to anticipate a debate, but do you know, Mr. Deputy Speaker, there's also an exemption order from the Procurement Act for the Ministry of Finance to exempt for all financing services procurement from his ministry. So they can now hand select who they want to finance ministries and public bodies. Sole select, Mr. Deputy Speaker, so there will no longer be any procurement. But that debate will be for another day, Mr. Deputy Speaker, because I filed a motion on my name to negative that order, because it goes against the grain of transparency and accountability. It is best, Mr. Deputy Speaker, they take the Procurement Act and throw it in the Gulf of Paria, because they have exempted almost every sector. They have almost exempted every sector of government expenditure so that there can be hand select, sole select of contracts and government benefits, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to go back into some other issues. One issue that has featured very prominently in this debate is that of property tax. And I want to bring some clarification to this issue of property tax, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Under the law, there are 4 categories of property tax. There are commercial taxes, residential, industrial, and agricultural taxes. And we have amended the law several times, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And the Minister announced that the valuations will take effect on the 4th of October 2023 for only residential lands, Mr. Deputy Speaker, only residential lands. And then the Minister said, well, I don't know why they're complaining, because you will only be paying $648 per annum in property tax. He said that will be based on an annual rental of $24,400. Well, then that breaks down, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that the rental of someone's house has to be at least $2,000, you know. In this day and age, Mr. Deputy Speaker, with soaring inflation and high prices of properties and rentals, whose house is going to be rented for $2,000 per month? Let's look at a 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom house. Will that be rented for $2,000 a month? The Minister must come clean with the population. He went to the lowest threshold to calculate what will be calculated on property tax, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
What is his rental value at home?
And Mr. Deputy Speaker, the issue is that particular point where the Minister would have indicated with respect to property tax. And there's a provision in the law, Mr. Deputy Speaker, of something called a valuation tribunal. And this is a due process provision that we had placed in the law. So how it works, the Minister has now given effect to the valuations of persons' properties who have filled out and submitted their property tax forms. The next step is that the Board of Inland Revenue will now send out the assessments for property tax and tell you exactly what you have to pay. Now, under the law, you have a right of recourse, which is through the valuation tribunal. So let's assume that citizen X property tax came in that he has to pay $10,000 and he has a 2-bedroom house, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and he wants to object to that. There is a valuation tribunal that must be set up with respect to this. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, in last year's budget statement, and I want to quote the Minister when he raised this issue, he said, and I quote, members of the tribunal have been appointed with the recruitment of the chairman in progress. Now, the Minister has to appoint 4 individuals, and the 5th one is the chairman who will be appointed through the JLSE. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I did some research and I went to the Parliament Library. And do you know that the Parliament Library has confirmed that there is no gazette or no members of the Valuation Tribunal has been appointed by the Minister?
So what
I don't know who these individuals are. I wish the Minister in his winding up would tell us who these 4 persons he appointed on the Valuation Tribunal are. And he must tell us the date on which these persons were appointed. Because I also checked with other persons in the industry and they have no idea of who these members of the Valuation Tribunal the Minister is speaking of, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
dream of that?
They are ghosts. They have ghosted him, or either they are ghosts. Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I also want to raise another point with respect to property tax, which they are not telling us. My colleague for Princestown will normally raise issues of public utilities. But do you know in this country, your water bill, your WASA bill, is calculated on your annual taxable value. So it means that higher your property tax value is, it is more money you will have to pay in WASA rates. And they don't have to go to no RIC, they don't have to come to Parliament. And this is something confirmed by the former CEO of WASA, Mr. Poon King, who told us that once property tax takes effect, water rates will also be higher, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It will be higher. So now citizens are faced with property tax, higher water rates, and impending increase in TNTEC rates, Mr. Deputy Speaker. But they're not lucky like the other persons that get tax exemptions that I just read out, They have to fork out that money from their pocket in order, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to fund this government and fund the mismanagement, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And there's another point on property tax, because they are creating an argument that property tax will go towards local government reform. That is absolutely not true, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, when you look at the Local Government Reform Bill, the Miscellaneous Provisions Local Government Reform Act, I want to read a provision of this and then I'll explain it. It says at subsection 6, which amended section 108, where estimates have been approved for use of a corporation for a particular year, and the corporation is in receipt of sums collected from property tax for use by the corporation, the sums shall be offset from releases due to the corporation for that year. So that simply means this, Mr. Deputy Speaker. If a corporation is allocated $10 million.
Remember, before you go into the point, you have just approximately 2 more minutes of your initial speaking time. You have an additional 10. You care to avail yourself?
Yeah, definitely, Mr.
Proceed.
Deputy Speaker.
Proceed.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, so as on the point, if the corporation is allocated $10 million through the budgeting exercise now, and it is estimated that the corporation is to now receive $2 million worth in property tax, the government wants us to believe that the actual revenue of the corporation or monies allocated for expenditure will be $12 million. That simply is not true, Mr. Deputy Speaker, according to what I just read. The property tax will be an offset on the estimates provided for them in the budget. So if the corporation is to receive $10 million based on our allocation, and they are to collect $2 million, the government will only release $8 million, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and the $2 million will come through property tax. So it is the government now keeping more money for central government and not to give the corporation to spend on road, drain, bridge, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It is not for that purpose. And the other categories of taxes, such as commercial, agricultural, and industrial, is not going towards local government. That is going towards central government. And that is the whole mama guy with this whole local government reform, Mr. Deputy Speaker. They must speak the truth on these matters, Mr. Deputy Speaker. They must speak the truth. Because that is why the opposition is here. When the government tries to control the truth, we are here to bring the reality and the facts to the country. Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, there's one issue that one particular group has asked me to raise publicly through the Parliament, and that is to deal with the Forex issues, Mr. Deputy Speaker. A group called Hajj, Umrah and International Tours Limited had written to the Minister of Finance on the 3rd of October 2023, asking that the Minister provide some relief to those persons, those Muslims, who have to go towards the Hajj. That is one of the pillars of Islam. And they have had severe difficulty in accessing Forex to pay for their packages in order to travel to Saudi Arabia. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm made to understand that the letter was delivered to the Minister and he has not formally replied to the group, and I asked the Minister whether or not he can in fact look into this situation and provide some relief to those citizens who want to ensure that they oblige with their religious obligations, which is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And that is one point I wish to raise with respect to that. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I know you don't want me to go too much into crime, but I think I'm compelled because there's one matter of the Forensic Sciences Center that nobody raised. And this matter deals with, Mr. Deputy Speaker, of something that all of us had the pain to read in the newspaper. When the 4 Peterkin murder victims' bodies were left to decompose because of what has taken place at the Forensic Sciences Center. Imagine the Association of Funeral Professionals of Trinidad and Tobago, President Keith Belgrove, had to advise the parents of these children to take legal action against the government, Mr. Deputy Speaker, because they found the bodies of the siblings to be swollen and discolored. These children were brutally murdered, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And the last you would have wanted was a proper send-off for these children. And due to what is taking place at the Forensic Sciences Center, this is what the family members of the children had to endure. And this is totally unacceptable. In any other country, the Minister of National Security would never even be seeing the doors of a cabinet, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Yet today, he's being protected by the Prime Minister and the other members of the cabinet, Mr. Deputy Speaker. We are calling for this minister to go. He must go, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to also go into some matters in relation to my constituency. And I want to thank the people of Barataria San Juan for their continued confidence in me, Mr. Deputy Speaker, as a Member of Parliament. And I came in here in the 12th Parliament as the youngest Member of Parliament, and I think I may not leave as the youngest Member of Parliament. Mr. Deputy Speaker, some of the complaints that we have received at the constituency office range from unemployment, youth unemployment, poor infrastructure, utility issues, and respect to infrastructure in the educational sector. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I raised the issues of the St. George's College in terms of they were relocated in October 2022. This year they'll be celebrating their 70th anniversary and they cannot even occupy the building that they started off in, Mr. Deputy Speaker. 1 year now, that building has been under repair. In terms of unemployment, Mr. Deputy Speaker, in my constituency, we have seen an increase in criminal activities. We have seen that throughout the country, in fact. But I'm pleading, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that the government engage the Member of Parliament to ensure that we can give opportunities to young people. There are so many young people that come into my office, Mr. Deputy Speaker, with degrees, masters, and they cannot get a job because apparently the system is designed as who you know, and that must never be. We must be in a government, Mr. Deputy Speaker, where you are promoted, where you are selected based on your merit, your qualifications, and not your credentials. A party card should not be a consideration when somebody is selected for employment, Mr. Deputy Speaker. A party card should never be. With respect to issues surrounding works and transport, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Drainage Division is located in El Socorro South, which forms part of my constituency. In the last year, my constituency, in particular El Socorro South, was underwater for about 5 to 7 days, simply because the pumps are not working. Year after year, I will complain about the flood pumps and the floodgates in El Socorro South, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and they will do nothing. They have allocated $6 million under that line item, and they probably spent $2 million. Why are they punishing the people of Trinidad and Tobago? If my seat was held by another party, they may have gotten the pumps apparently, Mr. Deputy Speaker. But that should not be so. There must be equitable distribution of the wealth of the state. That is not the PNM Treasury. That is the people of Trinidad and Tobago's Treasury, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And it is a simple fix. The minister told us that these pumps will cost less than $1 million. All they have to do is install 3 to 4 more pumps for us, Mr. Deputy Speaker, instead of having citizens to endure massive flooding for days. For days, Mr. Deputy Speaker. With respect to public utilities, we have had a replacement of an aging pipeline in 2nd Street in Barataria. That work has almost been done. We have commenced with WASA. I have some dialogue with them. Hopefully we get it done. They have promised us, and I will be holding them to their promise, that there are issues with respect to some long service pipes on Ibis Avenue and also on the Don Miguel Road too, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and some of the other side streets along that road, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And we are asking the government, through the Minister of Public Utilities, give people relief. My debate here, Mr. Deputy Speaker, focused on 2 simple things: security and simple things like water. This government comes here to boast about ICT and boast about all of the nice things that they're going to do.
I don't email the water.
This government is very good at announcements, but they are bad at implementation. They have announced for 8 years, Mr. Deputy Speaker. They have announced for several years that they are going to do X, Y, and Z. Implementation gap, TTRA, Statistical Institute, all of these other things that they want to do, and it will never see fruition. It will take a UNC government to implement in this country, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Because for 5 years, we have provided for this country and pushed this country 10 years forward. In the last 8 years, they have sent us back almost a decade. 2 decades, Mr. Deputy Speaker. In this last 8 years, Mr. Deputy Speaker. My friend from Princestown has raised a very serious issue with me. They have cut the Children's Authority's budget by $30 million, $32.5 million. The same children that they claim to care and protect, they have cut the budget by $32 million, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and they must account for that. I hope the member for Tobago East contributes to this debate and tell us why the Children's Authority has experienced this massive cut of over $30 million. That is totally unacceptable. While the Office of the Attorney
Member, you
General,
have 2 minutes.
While the Office of the Attorney General is benefiting from $195 million in legal fees in a single fiscal year, Mr. Deputy Speaker, a single PNM briefs. That is what it has to be, Mr. Deputy Speaker. But this year, I expected the Attorney General he would have come to this Parliament and at least contributed in this debate. But it seems as though the Attorney General will now have to shadow me. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I end my contribution by saying that the people of Trinidad and Tobago have had enough. The people of Trinidad and Tobago is ready for a change. Based on what took place at the local government election, Mr. Deputy Speaker, they should pack up their bags, leave the cabinet, and we are the government in waiting. They are the opposition in waiting, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Long live the United National Congress, and soon, Mr. Deputy Speaker, maybe next year's budget, we will be sitting on that side of the chamber. I thank you very much.
I recognize